Warning, this video contains nuance. Has anyone else felt as if Elden Ring has ruined a lot of other games for them? Specifically when it comes to rule of cool? Well, let me explain. Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming. And to prepare myself for Shadow of the Erdtree, the DLC for Elden Ring, I have been replaying Elden Ring, and I've fallen head over heels for this game, way more so than my first time going through it. For some reason, I've always liked FromSoft games, and I have loved them, but a few months ago, they really clicked. Like, there was a moment where I got sick and I started replaying Dark Souls 1, and it's like all the dominoes began to fall, where the gameplay loop went from fun to enthralling. And that's the same case with Elden Ring. But now that I've beaten Radahn, Renala, and Mohg, I've beaten Fire Giant. I didn't use summons or magic like in my first playthrough. I used my giant two-handed gut sword and a dream. There's something that I have come to realize that I think Elden Ring excels at, more so than the boss design, than the open world, than the visuals, and even the story. Like, those things are all great, but Elden Ring is the ultimate power fantasy in a video game. I have a giant sword. I went with a strength build. I have 60 vigor and 60 strength. No matter what is thrown in front of me, whether it be people who can hold back the very stars, lords of blood, drafted ones, giant dragons, master mages, my power fantasy is that I have the Blithe cloak and a giant sword, and I'm just living my I love the berserk aesthetic yet I never read it fantasy, and it feels great. And when you stagger a boss, it makes you feel powerful and feel strong, as if, yeah, this giant larger-than-life foe you're going up against, you can stand toe-to-toe with him. It's not just a matter of tickling it until it dies. No, you have a genuine effect on this guy, and that's one playstyle. In my first playthrough, I utilized summons, I utilized bleed builds, intellect builds, faith builds. I changed my build quite often. I used the Blasphemous Blade, the Darkmoon Greatsword, a whole bunch of really cool dragon incantations, or dropping full moons or Azure comets on people. Elden Ring excels at rule of cool, and this is something that I always knew was the case, but it's really clicked in me, and it's become something. And I'm not joking about this, it's ruined other games when they try to do rule of cool for me, because a lot of other games feel as if they have to hold back. They can't give you the really cool and exciting thing all the time, because it would be too powerful, or it would outstay its welcome. So you may get a scene with it, or you may play as a really powerful character for just a little bit of time. The gameplay may be extremely simple and one-dimensional, but it's more so for the flash and the appeal of it. Or if you get really powerful, it would be for like one fight, or it'd be like right before the end of the game, so you don't get that much time in the grand scheme of things to really toy around with all these new doodads and these cool toys. That's not Elden Ring. And I think Elden Ring has one of the most satisfying progression loops I've ever seen out of a video game. When you fight a boss, and you beat that boss, you get their remembrance, and you can turn that in for either their weapon or spell, and then you can use what they had just pounded you with repeatedly. You can now take that power for yourself and use it to defeat other enemies or other bosses. That feeling, that loop is so good. For instance, I have just beaten Mohg yesterday. I skipped him in my first playthrough, but I took him down yesterday on stream. And we all know the Nihil ability that absolutely is annoying, but it's kind of the big signature ability that Mohg has, right? Along with his spear. So you turn in the remembrance of Mohg, and you can just get the spear whose art of war is Nihil. And this is but one example of many. This idea, this notion that you not only become more powerful throughout Elden Ring, but you feel that power. You gain those abilities that you can choose to use. I'm never gonna use Nihil. I'm never pretty much ever going to use the Mohg weapon, but I have it available to me if I want to. And just knowing that I can, but I choose to use my giant sword, that's a good feeling, and it does matter. A feeling that I truly feel is important in a lot of video games is that feeling of replayability, not for every game, but the feeling of replayability even if you aren't going to replay the game. Just knowing you have options, just knowing, hey, there's so many different ways and avenues I can tackle this situation or play through this game that I kind of want to do that. I may never do that, but I like knowing that the option is available to me. The magic and the incantations in Elden Ring are really cool. They're exciting. They pack a punch, but they're also a spectacle to behold, and you feel powerful when you're using them. Radahn's swords, they're not meta, but who gives a crap? Because you can just use this giant, I'm gonna suck you all into this giant black hole in front of me, and then welcome to the slam you all. It's so clean. And you can do that while also equipping his armor set. Vanilla drops a giant full moon on you, so what can you do? You get that same spell and drop a full moon on other enemies. What a great idea. Why limit the player? I tend to find so often when it comes to Elden Ring, it just says, okay, have fun with it. If you want Elden Ring to be really hard, there's builds you can go about for that. And if you just want it to be this power fantasy, there's pretty much no other game that'll look and feel as good as Elden Ring in this regard. That to me is the basis of Elden Ring's success. Just whacked my funny bone, oh my god. And it's also one of the aspects I'm most looking forward to when it comes to the DLC Shadow of the Erdtree. All these new weapons, all these new spells, all these new weapon archetypes. Light greatswords, great katanas, reverse blades, martial arts, perfume bottles. These are really cool ideas. A great hammer that you can throw. Just a bunch of wild, wacky ideas to throw at the wall and see what sticks. If they're not that good, who cares so long as they feel good? So long as they give you the option. Because sometimes that feeling of knowing that it's at least an option is more than enough. I'm not saying that Elden Ring is the only game ever to have a concept like this, but of the games that I have personally played, it's arguably the best game when it comes to implementing this idea and executing on it. I think it's a fair bet to say that Monster Hunter incorporates this idea to some degree, with the idea that you tackle this monster, you overcome it, then you use those parts from that monster to become more powerful, to take on even stronger monsters, and that cycle goes on in that way. But I love the idea that you can get absolutely annihilated by some of these fights in Elden Ring. Screwed over. But if you can overcome it, then you can take what they had just used to put you down, and then you can use that to put other things down. How many people out there, when they beat Melania, just wanted to use Scarlet Aeolia, or whatever the hell it's called? The giant Scarlet Rot Blossom. It's not the most meta spell or anything, you just wanted to be able to say, I did that. Because it feels good. You may only use it once just to see the visual and you may put it away, but now in the back of your mind you're like, hey, I have that available to me. It's rule of cool with no excuses. There's no hang-ups to it. The game never asks itself, and I may have worded this poorly before, the game never asks itself, how can we limit this idea, or how can we best implement this so that it doesn't break the game? The game never asks that. The game has combat as your. It doesn't care if something will break the game, because it's fun, and you don't have to use it. If you want Elden Ring to be really hard, go ahead. Don't upgrade your gear, limit yourself however you want. That is your choice how to tackle the singular challenge the game will pose to you. And if you want to be like me and have a strength, like, guts power fantasy, go right on ahead. You can do that. And it feels really good when you pull it off. And you feel yourself getting better as you learn the timings to dodge, when to punish, how to punish. It feels so good. And if you just want to be the Lord of Destruction, laying down like golden or red lightning everywhere, breathing dragon fire or scarlet rot, summoning full moons, giant bows of magical arrows, using the Dark Moon Greatsword or the Blasphemous Blade, you want to rock around with 2 giant hammers, the game lets you. It may take a New Game Plus playthrough, but the game lets you. And the funny thing is, the game makes it a choice. So you feel as if there's some kind of unique element to it. You feel rewarded for the choices you made because you're choosing what to spend your remembrance on. However, the game has a funny little system to it where you can go get another one of those remembrances. Yeah, those giant shrines on rocky turtles. Yeah, you can just go back, get the remembrance again, and then get the other thing. Chances are you're not gonna use every piece of gear or spell or whatever whatever that comes from all the remembrances. But if you want, you can get the ones you really care about and the ones you really want. So the game never really feels limiting, but at the same time, it has that feeling of meaningful choice that is intrinsic to RPGs. So it still feels as if you're building your character, you are making choices that feel as if they have weight to them, but the game doesn't feel limiting. That is such a hard balance to strike, but Elden Ring nails it, in my opinion. And you come to what I call MMORPG design philosophy, to where you're excited for the next boss, not just because of what they may do, or their story, or whatever, but because of what they may give you. That is tantalizing. Horror for that axe. Malekith for that sword. Death, become my blade once more. I can do that. I can get the armor. So you become excited for these boss fights for more than just, I want to progress the game. I want to also progress my character. I'm getting some really cool loot out of it. I'm not just getting a bunch of runes for my build, I'm getting something palpable, something meaningful that I can stow away and say, you know what, if I ever want to try that build, I have that available to me now, that it's all set and squared away. Or, if I want to actively start making use of it, I can do that, if it's my build. And if not, I'll just hop on over to Renala, respec, and Bob's your uncle. It's great. One of the things I'm most excited for when it comes to the DLC is the fact it's going to give us even more options. All those new weapon archetypes. Heck, I even want to kind of try out perfume bottles. What a cool idea, because why not? Why be limiting? Why hold back when you can lean into it instead? A game known for its difficulty. If you're in the FromSoft community and you've played a lot of these games, Elden Ring is not one of the harder ones. It can be if you want to go it that way, but generally speaking, for a normal playthrough, it's not going to be overtly hard if you've played Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, and Sekiro, right? But they nailed that power fantasy, and they nailed it so well. It makes you think about the game even when you're not playing it. Elden Ring on this angle is super engaging, which I tend to find is more important than just being fun. Fun is relative. Would I say I'm having fun when I'm getting absolutely annihilated by Mohg using the heal on me? No. Am I engaged? Yes, because I want access to that DLC. And I'm gonna sit there until Mohg dies after the 1 hour mark. I'm gonna sit there with my giant sword, I'm gonna get good, overcome this skill issue, because this is how I want to play the game. I'm gonna knock down Mohg because I can. And if I wanted to use another build, I could. I know Comet Azure just hard counters him. You can just stand at the beginning of the room and just whittle him down with Comet Azure. You can do that. You have to build it correctly. You also have to space him correctly, but yeah, you can kind of do that. But I went through a war with him, because I wanted to. But now let's make sure this video isn't clickbait. How has this ruined other games for me? It honestly doesn't take that much more to explain this. Elden Ring just does this idea so well, to where when other games, a lot of other games, they try to do this really big rule of cool moment, where they give you a lot of power, or they have this one scenario that's supposed to feel really cool, it just doesn't hit the same for me. Because it feels as if they have to seclude it off into its own little instant scenario that you'll kind of wrap up relatively quickly, because it's not the same main gameplay loop. It's kind of something separate. Now, I'm about to list a bunch of games that I really do enjoy and that I love. And this isn't a knock on those games. Don't think it is. I'm just saying, you have these situations, like piloting the Engels in Nier Automata, or riding the motorcycle Echo in Wuthering Waves. You have these situations which are really cool, but you know they're kind of one-offs, and they may feel clunky or a bit slow. These aren't one-for-one comparisons with Elden Ring, so don't think it is, or anything like that. These are not that good of a metaphor, is what I'm trying to say, or a comparison. I'm making these comparisons because, to me, those are both moments I love in those games. And those are but two of many examples. But when it comes to Elden Ring, it does rule of cool so well, and this sense of power progression so well, while baking it into the gameplay loop, that when other games try and replicate that feeling, not the mechanic, but the feeling of going, wow, I can now do this really cool thing, it doesn't land as hard for me as it used to. Or if you ever get a really cool power-up, even for like a large portion of a game, and you're just like, yeah, this is cool, but it's like, I feel like there should be more to this, you know? I don't get that feeling in Elden Ring. That's what I'm more trying to allude to here. It's not a knock on these other games, I just think Elden Ring tackled this idea extremely well. And I'm so glad that I tried Elden Ring again. On the second playthrough, I've enjoyed it so much more than my first. And now I'm all ready for the DLC. I'm like level 117, I think. Radon and Moog are dead. I have a wealth of options at my disposal. I have so many level tiers if needed. I want to try the martial arts builds in the DLC so badly because they look so cool. And I know that they're gonna play cool as well. That's what I love about Elden Ring. It nails so many other components of what makes a good game, but this idea, this power fantasy, good god, does it do it better than like everyone else in the industry. So thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye everybody, until we meet again!